There we go.
Good to go.
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Simon Brooks. I'm the CEO of a company called the Rotamec Group. And I've been around Cheddar for a long, long time. And I'm glad to be here this morning chatting my story with you guys.
We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, it's good. Well, as you well know, Ange, it's been a long time. Known you many, many, many years. And the journey for Rotomec and the business started actually at Cheddar Rugby Club. Because many years ago, we used to go down there. I think I was 21. Dave was captain of the club.
Were you that young?
Yeah, 21, 22 back in those days. Yeah, when you were in the chicken shed and you were you were cooking the chilies after the games and things like that.
Again.
Yeah, and I can remember just running around the pitch on a Wednesday night for training. And it was Dave and Craig Furno. Those boys were there. And I was just contemplating then starting my own business because I've worked in other places I did my apprenticeship at Claire's Equipment in Wells. And I moved to a precision engineering company over in Martok. I finished my apprenticeship. And that was in the days that Westlands were being taken over by GKN. So the work dried up. So by the end of my apprenticeship, I didn't get a job with them because they were basically had no work.
Yeah.
So I moved up to a company called Williams & Oakey up in Radstock. Worked up there for a while and then changed and went to different companies and learned all the skills I could. And then eventually I came back to Cheddar and worked for a competitor down the road. And I thought, well, I can do a better job of this. And I was being on the rugby field chatting to Craig and the boys, and they're like, yeah, go for it. So I decided to take the plunge at the age of 21, 22. Here I was, really with the cards and the money and bits and pieces, got my own business, thought I was it. And then until I realized that business was a lot harder than that. And about 6 months later, I can remember I spent loads of money on a unit and bits and pieces. And I remember being pulled into the bank manager. It was the old-fashioned bank managers in those days. I remember him sat in Lloyd's in Cheddar, big stash, and he sat me down and he said, Simon, you have two choices here. I said, those. He said, one of them's go bankrupt, but it's going to cost you 250 quid, and you haven't got 250 pounds, and I'm not lending it to you. Or I know you can get on and do this. So you really need a good kick up the rear end and get on with it. And that was where Rotomec started then. So that was the kick I needed at those days. And off we went. So we started the business over in Westbury. What year it was now, but we started to build it.
Of course, you were at the units down there, weren't you?
Over at Westbury Submendit.
Yeah,
to start with. And it was hard going. Don't get me wrong. Here I am out in the market space trying to do something. Any advice I could give anybody that's starting a business, always expect the unexpected, because what I thought was going to happen didn't, and what I didn't think was going to happen happened. Yeah. So all of a sudden these curveballs are coming in. So you're going out there working, and my business is a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week business. We started working with the customers and bits and pieces like that. And then I was on my own most of the time. So I was going out, getting the work, bringing it back, doing the work, taking it back, and all these type of things. Hence why I was never really in the rugby club as much as I wanted to be, because I was working every weekend. So as the business grew, I took on a sales guy, and he went out, and it was quite interesting actually, because the first employee I took on, I thought, yeah, we'll try that and see how that goes. And then very first week, it was when he had to get a tax rebate, which I didn't have the money for, but you have to pay them by the tax system. So I had to give him £100 on that week, and I didn't have £100, so I had to borrow it. Gave it to him. He went in the bath arms and spent it all in the fruit machine that very night. I was like, oh no. But it's anyway, so we moved on from that. We learned lessons like that. And the business started to take off a little bit then. We started to grow and I had a few more employees. And then we went from there in 2000. We started doing distribution work in around 2000 and probably 2003, something like that. And we took some distribution rights on, and then that started to open doors for us. And I took a different sales guy on, and he was bringing me work. And it just grew and grew and grew from there. So then we started the sales side, we had the machining side, we had the fabrication side, and we had the rewind side.
But what do you actually do?
We do electrical mechanical engineering, all based around electric motors, gearboxes, pumps, process control, and automation. So it's breakdowns, repairs, but it's mainly industrial and commercial. We don't really get into, because the whole world works around electric motors.
So I don't bring my car into you then?
No. We did an advert for the Exeter branch once, and we put an advert out there saying you did gearboxes, and everybody was ringing up about the car gearboxes. No, we don't do that. We don't do car gearboxes. It's all industrial based. So it's a lot of people don't get to see what we do because it's behind the scenes. So if you imagine an automation line in a factory, we will do everything on that line if we need to, whether it be motors, gearboxes, inverters, drives, controls, process. If it breaks, we fix it. If we can't get the parts, we'll make them. So we've got a machine shop as well. So we just keep them going 24/7. And our reactive breakdown is probably the most critical bit that we've got. When you've got a line down for, say, 10, 15,000 pounds an hour, everybody's stood up there, can't produce anything. That's when we have to jump in, get stuck in, really get the job done, get it back to them as soon as possible.
So how does computers impact on you? Because obviously lots of stuff are done through computers. I am really talking stuff that I don't know about here. I'm looking at Mike for inspiration.
Computers aren't really a thing for us, to be honest.
But do they interfere with your potential work?
Not really, because ours is PLC controlled, which is slightly computer operated, but that's mainly on the electrical side.
What does that mean? PLC control?
Project,
Public Limited Company comes to my mind, but I know it's not that.
Programmable logic controllers, that's the one I was looking for.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so what happens is you have a screen that's programmed.
Okay.
That screen then will go through the logic processor, and it will then send all the details out to different parts of the machine.
And basically, if the machine breaks down, that's when you guys come in.
Yes. So if a motor fails or a gearbox fails or something just goes bang, or an inverter, for argument's sake, which is the sort of brain to what the motor does. Yeah. So the PLC will tell the inverter what to do. The inverter then programs up to do that. So we program the inverters, but that's about it. We don't really get involved too much on the PLC side.
I'm going back to cars here. I remember years and years and years ago, I had a Ford Escort that went off the road, and the mechanic couldn't work out what the problem was. And it worked out, it was a tiny little it was off the road for months. And where we live, you can't be off the road for months, can you? So it's like impossible. And this tiny little diaphragm, and it took him months to work it out. Yeah. So in a sense, your job or your company will work out the problem, resolve the problem to keep people working, really. Yeah,
to give an example, an electric motor is full of windings. The windings will go pop, so they'll just blow up. So we have to then strip it right down to bare bones, rewind it, put all the copper back into it, like coils and bits and pieces like that. Varnish, bake it, put it back together, test it, and then send it back out there again. And then the mechanical side is all your bearing journals, your bearings, your housings, pump seals, things like that.
Can I come and see the factory, please?
You can. Anybody's welcome to come and see the factory anytime they want.
I think you should have an open day.
We do normally once a year.
Oh, do you?
An open day, but it's normally have a team of suppliers come down. It's just like a bit of a trade show sort of thing. Joe Public don't normally attend it, but you can come if you want to.
But why aren't people interested in? You are a very successful business. You're based in Cheddar now. How many people do you employ?
The last count was 140.
That's a big employer for a small.
Yeah, but we're not just in Cheddar, you see.
No, exactly.
So we're Cheddar, Exeter, Wales, Leicester, and Nottingham.
Wow, so you cover a big old area.
Yeah, we do.
Is it pretty much the whole of the country that you would go to, or is it sort of a radius from those sites?
Anywhere. We have customers all over the country.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much. But it's kind of, some of it's through distribution, so the manufacturers recommend them to us.
When you say distribution, explain that part to me, please.
So basically, you have manufacturers that make the product, but they don't go to market and sell the product out directly. They'll sell to what they call OEMs, which is end user manufacturing. So manufacturers will build and put their piece of equipment into their machinery. Yeah. Then they sell the machinery. Yeah. So then what happens is when something goes wrong, they go back to the original manufacturer. Yeah. They will then refer them to us, to a company like ours.
Whoever,
to do the repairs or to supply them new.
So how do you distribute?
We just order it from the manufacturer and send it to whoever we need to.
Whoever needs it.
Whoever it goes, whether it comes from Europe, whether it comes from America.
So when you were 21 and contemplating, in fact, I remember we were on it was a sevens tournament. Yeah. Can you remember that? Down at Butley. Was it Butley?
Butley we went to, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
And you had an iron filing in your eye from work. And I'm sat there, you're sat on the step, and I'm going, you're going to hospital to get this damn thing out. And you're going, I haven't got time, and I want to play rugby, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And we started talking about business then. But it's like, did you ever think at that point that you would be as successful as you are today?
No, not really, to be honest, because when I've got my financial director, Claire, and she's been with me since day one. Yeah. And we always said, if we ever get this business to £1 million turnover, we'll sell it. We made some money, and now we're 15 million turnover, a bit further up the chain. But it's I never thought we'd ever get to this level, to be honest. It's a hard industry to be in because it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. It takes all your time. Holidays were non-existent, those type of things. I never thought I'd get to where we got to now, and we've not stopped yet.
But do you not think that most people, because we were talking about this before you came, about the fact that when you own your own business, and we all own our own businesses, that you are it's 24 hours a day. You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, like you were saying, did I take the deposit? Do you know, it is 24 hours, whether you like it or not.
Mentally, it's 24 hours, but mine's physical as well.
Yeah.
Because I'd get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go out to that call, come back at say 4 in the morning, 5:30, I'm gone again.
Do they still call you?
Not anymore. Now I've got a team behind us now that they take the calls, but for many, many years, probably 15 years of the journey, I had calls all the time. And I was working, I was doing 120-hour weeks, Sundays, 6 in the morning till 10 at night. And good old JC, you know JC, he's the amount of times I used to walk in the pub at sort of 10 to 11 at night covered in oil and grease and stuff. I was absolutely dead on my feet. A couple of beers, back home, up again at 4, gone again. And that was day after day after day after day. And then as you get bigger, then you get the sort of confidence to take someone else on. And then then it starts to diminish a little bit. But it takes its toll on family life as well, because you're never around. You know, we've got the 2 kids, and I didn't really see them growing up, to be honest. That took its toll. So
do they resent you for that? Is there an emotional kind of?
I think there's things they missed out on from their dad not being there as much as he should have been.
Yeah.
And that's played a big part in the way they are now, really, to be honest. I wouldn't say resentful is the word, because you know they have been privileged, to be honest, because they've had, you know, a lot more than probably a lot of other children have had over the time. But I did find time to do Daniel's and Joseph's football. So it was kind of they were football on a Saturday morning, so I had to make the time for that, and that was difficult. So I go to work in the morning, come back, go to football, then come back, go back to work again, and those type of things. But I think resentment is probably not the right word. It's probably more disappointed they didn't get the things that the other kids had.
But they did in different ways.
Yeah.
It's always that balance, isn't it? Being a parent, and I know you've not gone through this yet, but I'm sure you will, or I hope you will. But that bit where the balance, I remember when we started our business, this business, and we started it, and it's Somewhere House, and I said to the kids before we even signed on the dotted line, I set them down and said, look, this is how it's going to impact on you all. You need to think about this, because we're not going to be around. We're going to be flat out. Dave's got a full-time job anyway, on top of running a business with me. It's a lot to do. And they all were right up for it. Yeah, please do it. Please do it. Please do it. But it does impact. Whatever you say, it does impact.
I think, you know, from my position, I'd say anybody who wants to go and have their own business, go for it. Because you're better to have tried and failed than not tried at all.
Yeah, I agree.
But they don't realise the impact that it has: family life, social life, financials, stress, the other bits and pieces that come within that. Because you can sit there and go, okay, yeah, they all think, oh, like, you know, you look at people, they're driving a nice car, they're doing this, they're doing that. Not many people think, well, actually, how did they get there? What have they gone through to get this? They look at themselves, right, for you.
You're lucky.
You're lucky, yeah, you're doing this, you're doing that. But they don't realise the impact it has on family life, work-life balance.
It's all that journey that they don't always see. They just think you wake up one day and that's it. You've got this business, and yeah.
Our relationship started. I mean, I know our relationship started before that, but our relationship, our personal, whatever way you want to look at it, I don't know how to describe it really. But our closeness got when you were struggling with your business, wasn't it? And then that was, and we've just been together ever since, type thing. But it's like, I think you need somebody that you can depend on. And I know for me, mine was Dave. I could depend on Dave to support me. I can remember coming home, similar to you, I have to pay the wages and I've got no money in the bank. What the hell do I do? And it was like, oh gosh. And Dave would have to go out and earn money to be able to pay the staff's wages. And I'd go out and do private work to be able to pay the staff's wages. And that's what it was like for quite some time before we had enough money to employ the staff. Well.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's no different. You know, you start worrying about things. You start, you know, not only are you worrying about the business, trying to do the business, trying to be out there doing it, get the business. And I never realized that you have to wear so many hats being a business owner, because start with an engineer, it's great. Then all of a sudden you're dealing with legals, you're dealing with HR, you're dealing with all the things that the business come. And as you get bigger and you move and you take more people on, you get further away from what you originally started to do.
How do you support your staff emotionally? Because, I mean, obviously that's what we do as a charity. We do an awful lot of supporting people, but I just wonder, as a business owner, how do you do that?
We've got HR and a lady called Tash in there, but we nowadays it's all changed about the benefits of the employee. So we offer free counselling, we offer all the health benefits and all the different bits and pieces. It's a bit like sick pay and things like that. Since COVID, they all were concerned with statutory sick pay or sick pay. And we all know over the years that if you offer sick pay, they're more than likely to take it without it being sick.
Yeah.
So it was always a statutory thing, but now it's become very prevalent that these guys are concerned if something does happen, like COVID, and they're away for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, how are they going to support their families? So we're putting things in process now, like insurance policies and things like that to support them. And they've got 24-hour access to all the helplines and different things that we offer as a business, which like every business can offer, but it comes at a cost. So you can employ, you can put it in their package to say, okay, yeah, you've got mental health, you can speak to a counsellor, you've got sort of health policy if you get injured and things like that. And it's open to them 24/7, so it's all confidential. We don't get involved in it, and companies offer this, so we actually pay for that service for them. And internally wise, obviously HR's, the door's always open. They can have private conversations, they can have confidential conversations, and we try and develop them on and help them with whatever troubles they've got at the time. Because all they want to do is come to work and go to work. But if they're bringing issues from home, it's difficult for them to concentrate. And the type of work that we do, if they're not concentrating, it goes wrong, it's a lot of cost to the business. So
but also it's an accident waiting to happen as well, to a
Yes.
certain degree.
And we have experienced that in the business as well over the years. So, people that have been alcoholics and they've come in and they've fallen over, they've hurt themselves. We've had one particular individual, wasn't even meant to be there. He was there, he fell over, had injury to his eye, unfortunately lost his eye. And that was nothing to do with the business at all. And these are the type of things, it affects the guys in the workshop, but then we have to deal with that. And that's putting another cap on them, because I was never, ever thought I'd be a mental health person to try and listen to these guys and support them, although we've got support around us, but you have to lend them an ear. And there's the financial side. If they're struggling financially, how do we help them? So we've put funds in place and said that, you can pull on these funds if you need to. And we put it on some sort of loan scheme, so they a bit like buying their toolboxes and things like that. So you support them in every way you can. But unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't go back the other way either. So you can support them and support them and support them, and then as soon as something better comes along or they want to change a direction, they don't think twice about you, they're gone. And you could put all the time and effort into these guys, and then all of a sudden they're gone again.
But that's employees, aren't they? Isn't it?
Oh yeah, and I should imagine every business is the same.
Absolutely. I think I always see it as that's the right step for them. We've got somebody that's worked for us for 20 years and she just wants to taste something else. But when you kind of think, you get anxious for that person to make those I'm not anxious that she's going to go and do it in the sense that, but I'm anxious that it's not going to work out. Yeah. And you've given up something that you've been very happy with for the last 20 years. And it's that fear for them. They're very comfortable and everything else like that. But it's like, oh God, I'm not sure I'd want to do what they want to do.
I think from my point of view, I never stop anybody moving on for the right reasons. It's the wrong reasons that I really struggle with. And it's kind of,
so what's a right and what's a wrong?
If you're moving on to develop your career in a different path, fully support that. If you're going on to do something you haven't done in the past, or you want to change of direction, fully support that. It's when they say, I'm going up the road for an extra £1 an hour, or I demand these more wages, or this or that or that. And they think, that by challenging their position in the business, they're going to just automatically get that because you're in fear of them leaving. But unfortunately, we're not in fear of anybody leaving, because if they leave, they leave. It's our job to then replace. Yeah. And that's it. But there are a lot of them, I think, because they might be in key positions, whether it say be a machinist or somebody who does a specific skill, by coming to us and saying, I've been offered this, we just say, we'll go and take it then. And the amount of times they've gone, maybe I shouldn't do this. So it's up to them. But then I've had other guys say, okay, look, I'm going to move on because I want to take my career this direction. And it's like, great, carry on. We've got no problem at all with that. But it's the ones that just use it as a sort of like leverage to try and get more salary or more this. More
but
that.
Also, they'll do it once, and if you give in to them, they're going to come back again in 6 months' time or a year's time.
All the guys that leave for the right reasons, the door's always open to come back. All the guys that leave for the wrong reasons, don't darken my door again, because for the wrong reasons. And they know that when they leave, because we have an exit meeting with them, say what's what and what's not. They may have a grievance, but what really gets me is if they have a grievance about something, like, I don't know, something's not gone in the right direction, or they didn't get a pay rise, they didn't get a promotion, for argument's sake, they go around telling everyone else how bad it is. And this is that, and this is that. And you kind of like support all the rest of the guys and say, look, it's not really that bad at all. Just this one person has a grievance because he didn't get the manager's role because he wasn't competent to do the manager's role. And that's one of my kind of things that are really important to me, is making sure that the guys get to the right level, because they say they can do the job and then they don't, and they can't, and it's too much stress for them, and then they go off sick and things like that. And it's identifying where those levels are at, because you can promote them into manager roles and even up further than that. But if they can't compete in that arena because their levels, and that's one thing I've learned over the years, is people have their own levels. And if they go above those levels and they can't compete in those levels, then how do you get them back down again? Because you put them into a pay rise and you can't drop the money back down and things like this, all the legal side of things. And it's very difficult then to say, look, you were doing a great job at this level, you've stepped up a level, you're not doing such a great job because you can't do sort of some of the things like customer service or this or, reactive or whatever. And now you're causing us problems. So what do you want to do? Do you want to
Is it causing you problems or is it causing them problems because they can't fulfill their tasks?
It's causing
because it's exactly. It is a two-way thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're trying to communicate with them and saying that, there's no point in going in there with an iron fist and saying, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this. The question is, why have you done this? Why has this happened? And what are we going to do to stop it happening again? And sometimes they'll say, oh, sorry. But if it continues, you've got to try and understand why is it continuing? Because somebody at that level who does the job properly, knows the job, won't have those problems that you've got. So is this a little bit above and beyond you? And then they start to get a little bit sort of to a point where it's, but it's embarrassing now because I said I could do it and now I can't. And it's like, well, it's not embarrassing at all. It's just the fact you need to know your level. We've had guys step up and step back. The biggest grievance I have is that they say they're on this salary when they're at that level and they're on that salary when they're on the new level. After, say, 2, 3, 4, 5 months probation or 6 months and they're still not dealing with that, they can't just step them back again on salaries and things. So they end up going down a level but still on the same salary.
Why is that?
It's just the way it is, because if you look at the revenue and the way they say about, how you pay your people, you just can't take it away again.
Well, you can, but it's about how you do that, isn't it? If somebody's on probation and they fail to complete their probation or they're not able to, they have a choice. You either have a job doing this or you don't have a job because you can't do the job you're doing.
But what I find with probation, you're quite correct there, you can in probation period. But because you're supporting them through probation period, they've got all the help and support they need to do their job. A lot of that job is kind of like dismissed as kind of a grey area as such because
how long's your probation period though?
Normally 3 months.
I know. We don't have a probation period for 3 months. We have a longer probation period. So basically we get people into that position and then they've got the next 3 months to prove themselves. If it still doesn't work out, they're not happy, we're not happy, then we can take them back if they feel they want to do that.
Yeah, but you're continually doing a probation period then, whereas we've done it in the past. We've learned from this. We do that now, actually. We do extend it, or secondary extend it. But before, you do 3 months, they get on the job really well. It's like a new employee coming. They come from an agency, for argument's sake. They want to impress. They really do well for the first 3 months. And as soon as probation's up, I got the job now, they fall off a cliff. Yeah. And then you're like, well, hang on a minute. We've just paid a lot of money to the agency to get you here. And now you're not doing the job. And then, psychology plays a massive part in how these people operate or how everybody operates, to be honest. And it's really difficult.
Do you have because I know we're in a completely different industry and I understand that. But what we found is that having monthly check-ins with every single member of staff, and it goes through the management system. So their direct manager will have a check-in with that person at least once a month, 30 to 50 minutes per month. And we found that way people feel that we can iron out the stuff before it's even got to become a problem, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, we call those personal development reviews. So we do that every quarter.
But is there a formality to that? Is it a tick box thing?
There's a formality to that because they come to the meeting and it's about their personal development, the goods, the bads, what they could do, what they want to achieve, how they want to achieve it, where's their aspirations, what do they want to do in the business, and tell us the goods and the bads so that we can then reflect on that and see exactly what we can change to make it better. So it depends. The branch managers are responsible for their team. They may send that down the line to the supervisors and things to do that. So we do get reviews every quarter. They come in and then we can see exactly what's going on with the staff.
But with somebody's mental health, though, I don't know why this is coming up, but it is. But with somebody's mental health, is there a point where if we don't catch it quick enough, because if it's every 3 months, you've got to wait 3 months in between before you can actually say, I'm struggling. Where do companies kind of manage that in between?
Well, we have things.
I know what you have in place, but it's like sometimes people don't want to talk. And you know that yourself. So.
Yeah, I know that. I've experienced that myself as well. But what we do find a lot of is the guys in the workshop will see a change in somebody. And then they'll start to say, because this bright, bubbly character is normally this. And then all of a sudden you start to see the change in their performance because they'll start coming in late or they got no want or will, or there's issues and problems. So they do report that through to HR.
Good.
And say there's an issue here. Because one of the biggest points for me is difficulty in how to manage alcohol in the workplace. That is a really, really big key point for us, because everybody likes to go out and have a drink. Sometimes there's no physical limit to what you can, the level that you are able to be working with alcohol in your system. So we've experienced this as well, because we did have a guy that was an alcoholic, trying to manage him. So he's coming into work. Sometimes you can clearly see that he's had a drink, and you can smell it on him in bits and pieces. So as far as to my knowledge is that you can approach them and say, okay, we think you've had a drink. We have to send you home on full pay whilst we end an investigation as to what you were doing. So they're quite happy to go home on full pay. Right?
Of course.
Which is driving a behaviour. They can do it more often. And it's just like how you manage that within the workspace. So if somebody walks in, because the only people that can do an actual test it's the police or the medical practitioners, because they're qualified to do it. But there's no limit to what you can have. There's a drink drive limit, so many milligrams per such, but there's no limit, as far to my knowledge, of how much you can have inside you whilst you're at work.
But you saying that is because we do tests. We do random tests. We random test our clients and we random test our staff. And it's not about limit. It's if you've got alcohol in your system, and zero tolerance policy, because we can't have that in our. Now, we have some staff that are in recovery, so they can't have any alcohol in the system at all. Yeah. And then we have some staff that can. They can drink and do things merrily at their own leisure. But they have to have informed us that they've done that. So, for example, if you've gone out on a Saturday, you work for me, you've gone out on a Saturday night and you've had a few beers or whatever, then on Monday morning, if we're random testing, you'd say to me, actually, Angie, I was drinking on Saturday night. Okay, that's fine, but we'll test you tomorrow. Okay,
so when you do the test, then it says they're over. What limit are they over?
They're over a certain. It depends on the test. You can tell on the test what their limit is.
Or is it a zero tolerance? Completely?
Zero tolerance.
And what happens in that event, zero tolerance, if somebody is over, what do you do with them?
Well, if somebody's drinking and they're not supposed to be drinking, as in they're in recovery and supposed to be abstinent, then it's either we always give people a chance. So we always give them the option. We help them. We get them some support. We pay for people to go into treatment, do all of that. We do everything we can. But the people that have done it, if they've done it more than once, then we fire them.
Yeah, but see, there's a difference between the people that you're looking after and the people that work for you. So the people that work for you, if they come in...
No, people who we're looking after, the clients get dismissed immediately. They get discharged immediately. There's no question about that. They've got to come on an absence basis.
And the clients in the business?
The clients.
What about the people that work there?
Same. So those who have to be abstinent. Everybody gets given a chance. They've had that one chance. Once they've had that one chance where we've helped them to get extra support and get themselves back on track, then if they do it again, then we dismiss them immediately.
Yeah, so if somebody's working for you and they go out on a Saturday or say a Monday night and they have a few drinks, they come in Monday morning and you go, right, you've got zero tolerance, we're testing you. What happens?
If they're over the limit, then they get dismissed.
Well, this is the limit. What is the limit?
Well,
it's what you set.
It's what you set your limit at. Yeah. It's what you feel that somebody can manage a machine. If, like, for example, some of your machines, I mean, I know I've had my hand caught in a machine in a wood.
Yeah.
It's about safety, isn't it? It's about risk. What does the risk assessment say? If the risk assessment says, actually, it's a high risk if you've got any kind of alcohol or drugs in your system, so therefore we have a zero tolerance policy. I mean, building sites have them now. There's building sites across the country that have vans turn up and they immediately test all their staff. And if their staff have got any trace of drink or drugs in them, that's it, they're off.
But the difficulty is when you're running a smaller business, you can't afford to have people.
No, I know. It's a catch-22, isn't it?
And this is the point I'm trying to drive at. Yeah. Because yes, we can put all those things in place. And if they all go out, say, and leave and do on a Wednesday night because somebody's left and they have a few drinks, the next morning they come in. If we tested 6 of the staff and they're all over the Z limit, but where's the capability with that Z limit? And this is one of the things I think they need to look at and understand that if somebody does a test in work, although it's not medically proven, if they're over a certain limit, you shouldn't have to pay them.
Oh, absolutely not.
That should be a situation by where you forfeit your pay by doing that. But if we send 6 of my staff home, we've got, in one particular part of the business, you're not going to have anybody working that day, but you're paying them all.
But I guess the question is what's the worst evil? Is it that you had 6 people go home, or is it that 6 people keep working and one of them gets tragically injured because they've...
And where does that responsibility lie?
Yeah, it's so difficult. I get you. Yeah.
When you first start up your business, you don't think like that, do you? You don't think...
Well, you don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, you don't
to be honest, you don't.
You don't. And on top of that as well, it's like when you're there pretty much on your own, when you first start the business, you have to be. You like to go out for a drink because it's your relaxation time.
Yeah.
So you have a drink, and then you get home at 11 o'clock, and you had a few drinks, and then 2 o'clock the phone's ringing.
Yeah.
What do you do then? It's like, it's one of those scenarios.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
I had a guy that used to work for me who was a big drinker. He drank a lot, and you get phone calls from him at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and you could tell he was off his face.
Yeah.
And he was desperate for me to. He was only part time. He wanted to be full time. He wanted a van. He wanted all these things. I said to him, I can't do that with you drinking all the time. It's just not going to happen. And anyway, about, I don't know, a month later, he decided that he didn't want to work for me anymore. He just said, he came up with the excuse that I think it was his wife was ill or something. And I knew it wasn't the case because his wife had been messaging me saying, oh, you must give him a van, you must do this, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he then went around telling everybody else that worked for me that, of course, that I'd fired him, and telling all these weird, wonderful stories that he'd made up in his head. When ultimately, it was actually, I said to him, "You can't drink and have a company vehicle," and he just couldn't admit that to himself.
No, that's the same. We've got a zero tolerance on the vehicles. We've got quite a few site bans and bits and pieces, but that leads, all these things lead into sort of difficult conversations with staff.
Yes.
Now, even going back last year, there was a zero tolerance put in with people. So if a van was seen at the pub and somebody was seen to have a drink, then that was a zero tolerance, but you can't prove any of it. But, at the end of the day, you don't prove they're going to get in the van, but they were there. So they adopted that really well. And then January before, we had a situation where one of our drivers hit somebody in Shipham and it was fatality. He actually killed somebody. So he was completely cleared of everything. It was he wasn't drinking or anything else. So afterwards we then had to put dash cams in all the vehicles according to the insurance. So they wanted vehicle driver dash cam, plus they wanted the front camera dash cam and the back camera dash cam. And then we bought a whole new fleet of vehicles. So we put all the dash cams in according to the insurance. And then you tell the drivers, well, you're now got dash cams in. They don't want it.
No, of course.
They don't want us watching them when they're doing driving and stuff. And so, well, we're caught between a rock and a hard place again, because the insurance company is saying we have to have it, and the engineers are saying they don't want it. And it was quite ironic, actually, because when the people come and fitted the dash cams, we agreed a process that we wouldn't actually watch it unless there was an event or something happened, which was fine. And only one person's got access to it. Great. And then we realised that the people that installed the dash cams, they turned the heater on, just one thing, it knocked the dash cams out. We didn't tell it to any of us for ages. They tried every single way to get round not having these dash cams in. But then we had an incident where a wing mirror got smashed off, and it was the responsibility of our driver because we checked the dash cam and he was on his phone. Oh. So you kind of got all these things going on, but the argument that the employees bring to the table, they don't want this, they don't want that, they don't want this, which is, to a degree, nobody wants Big Brother. But ultimately, it's for their safety.
It's accountability, though, isn't it? Also, you're driving a company vehicle. You are accountable for your behaviour because you're representing, because your vehicles have got your name all over them. Ours don't. Yeah. But, you are. We've always said, if you have an accident, if it's an accident, we'll pay for it. But if it's...
You've got nothing to hide.
Then if you've created it, then you're responsible to pay for it.
Well, this leads into other things as well, because it's like if somebody has an accident at work, and they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing, are you still responsible to pay them? But then,
because they're breaching their contract.
They're breaching their contract, but, like we had an incident where a guy fell off a ladder, and he wasn't even meant to be up the ladder. We've got forklifts, we've got man cages, we've got all these stuff. Because he was rushing to go home, he went 4 meters up a ladder, fell off, and broke both his wrists. So now you're in a position where it's it's riddle reportable back to the HSE because there's an incident at work. And do you pay this individual for doing something that you shouldn't have done, or do you put them on statutory, bearing in mind what we spoke about before, when they're worried about the only breadwinner of the house? So you're in that situation there. Where
it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, we do statutory pay. Yeah. That's it. No grey areas. It's statutory sick pay, unless management feel otherwise. So
discretionary.
It's discretionary. And that way, what we do is it gives the manager the option to say, well, actually, this person's never been off sick. They've never taken, and they've got a stomach bug, which has been going around the house. Of course, we're going to pay them.
Yeah, well, see, these are the decisions as business owners you've got to take every day, which is
scary, isn't it?
These are not the things that most people see.
But also, we've been talking for probably the last 15, 20 minutes all about things that affect our businesses, but none of them translate into revenue or profit or growing the business. It's all about managing the business. And that's what people who don't run businesses don't ever see any of this.
But isn't there, I was reading an article the other day, or listening to a book, and they were saying about there's people that own businesses and run businesses, and there's people that actually don't need to run and own business. They are good employees.
Yes.
And that's sometimes we've got to recognise that not everybody wants to run their own business.
Yeah, well, that just comes back to the levels again and things like that, because you've seen it time and time again where the grandfather set the business up, handed it to the father, and then it's handed it to the grandson. The grandson's running it. So it's all set ready for those people to carry on the business. So they don't really need, because all the hard work was done by the grandfather. You start a business from scratch like I did and have to go through all the processes, and you write your own processes as well, because there's no hard and fast rules to all of this.
And they change.
And they change. And they don't even tell you when they've changed. We got caught a while back with a situation where there was a Construction Act of 1996 brought into play. We didn't know anything about it. We're industrial. We don't think that the Construction Act comes under our thing. But I had some work done by an individual. He tried to charge me too much money. I had an argument with him and said we're not paying that sort of money, because he charged me X for doing the work, and then it came in at Y. And I said to him, look, we're not paying you for that because we didn't ask you to do that. He said, okay, fair enough. I said, look, we might be able to make it up somewhere else on a bit of another job or something, but you've done that under your own steam. 2 years down the line, we didn't give him any more work. And I get a debt collector on me saying, we owe this money. I was like, what's this for? But because you didn't pay him at the time. And under the Construction Act of 1996, every business is covered under this Construction Act, whether you know it or not, apart from nuclear. That's the only part of any industry that's not under this Construction Act. But they don't tell you these things. So then it went to an adjudicator to have a look at this situation. We give all the paperwork to him. He looked at it. He said, oh, you didn't put a payless notice in, so you're going to lose, because you had to put a payless notice in for any of this Construction Act to work. I was like, what's a payless notice? I didn't know what a payless notice was. And then we lost the case and had to pay him all his money. And if I wanted to get that money back, I then had to counter-sue him to get it back again under this Construction Act. So these are the type of things that causes stress and hassle. And it's just like, we don't even know about it. Even my lawyers, when I spoke to them, they said, oh yeah, it's in play. You're like, well,
thanks.
when did this come along?
Yeah.
And it's
But I suppose that's the other thing. It's about people owing you money too, because I don't know about you, but I know you've had challenges with people paying, and we've had challenges with people paying. I mean, most of our contracts are through government, so it's crazy, really. The government is supposed to pay within a certain period, and they don't always do it. But you must have that challenge as well.
We do. We have a great team in there, to be honest, but we do have the challenge because some accounts want to be 120 days and some want to be 60 days and 70 days. But to be honest with you, because we're dealing mainly industrial, we don't get too many of them. I think farmers are the worst, to be fair. months and months and months. But that, you don't mind that because it's not normally a huge amount of money. But it's it does have its challenges, and it's we got things like there's a company in Tiverton. They went bust. Well, they might be a bit further down south actually, but they were a multinational company. Been going around for donkey's years, and then overnight they went bust. Didn't know anything. They owed us about 25 grand at the time. We just don't know, again, the difference.
To check.
So I can waffle all day, so don't worry.